Millions of cigarettes are made every single day. They are packed in boxes, sealed in plastic, and shipped all over the world. Most people who smoke probably never stop to think about how each cigarette is created, but there is a long, detailed process behind it that many have never seen. What surprised me is how organized and fast everything is. From fields full of green tobacco plants to machines that roll and wrap with perfect timing, it almost feels like watching a machine dance. But when you look closer, it is more than just impressive technology. It is a very calculated system made to produce a product that billions of people rely on every day. Even with all the warnings we see, those scary pictures on cigarette packs, the rules against ads, and the knowledge that smoking kills, people still keep smoking. I found it hard to believe that more than 5.7 trillion cigarettes are made each year. That is over 15 billion per day. Just thinking about the number is overwhelming. What is more shocking is how common smoking still is. Around 1.3 billion people in the world smoke. That is nearly 1 out of every 6 people on the planet. Many start because of stress, peer pressure, or habit. Others are pulled in by the history and the image cigarettes have carried for decades. Something cool, something bold. I remember old movies showing actors smoking like it was part of their personality. The truth is, it was not an accident. That image was carefully built by advertising and pop culture. And even now, after all the science and health studies, the addiction holds on. Cigarettes might end up in stores and pockets, but their life starts in the soil. In large farms, workers start by filling trays with soil that is full of nutrients. These trays go through a seeding machine that spreads tiny tobacco seeds across the surface. The goal here is even spacing, so the seeds do not fight for space, water, or sunlight. A few people keep watch to make sure the machine is working correctly and that the seeds are placed just right. When the trays are ready, they are moved into greenhouses. There, the seeds sit on floating beds that keep them wet all the time. I thought this part was interesting. Instead of watering from above like normal farming, the trays float on water, so the roots stay moist without risking rot or fungus from wet soil. The environment inside the greenhouse is tightly controlled. Machines help regulate the temperature in the air so the plants grow strong and healthy. After several weeks, the small plants are taken to the field. When they grow tall enough, a machine cuts off the top flowers. This is called topping. It may sound harsh, but it helps. By removing the flower, the plant puts all its energy into making the leaves thicker and richer in nicotine. And since the leaves are what make the cigarette, farmers need them to be as strong as possible. After the tobacco plants are harvested, the leaves cannot be used right away. They need to go through an important process called curing. This happens in large barns, where workers place the fresh green leaves into wooden crates or hang them on racks. Then, heat is used to slowly dry them out. It is not just about drying them quickly, though. The temperature and airflow are carefully controlled so that the leaves do not dry too fast or unevenly. That could ruin the quality. Over the next 5 to 8 weeks, the leaves go through a big change. They start off green, but by the end of the curing period, they turn golden brown. This part really matters because it helps build the smell and taste of the tobacco. It also affects how the cigarette will burn. When I first learned this, I did not realize how much science goes into making sure the tobacco burns just right. If this step is rushed or skipped, the tobacco might taste bitter or harsh, and that would ruin the entire batch. When the tobacco leaves are fully dried and cured, the next job is to sort them. Workers separate the leaves based on their size, color, and overall quality. It is very detailed work. The best-looking leaves are often saved for cigars or premium cigarette brands. The rest are blended together to make the kind of tobacco most people find in everyday cigarette packs. Sorting may sound simple, but it is a skill. Getting it wrong means the flavor and burn could be inconsistent, which is not good for business. Once sorting is done, the leaves are made soft again by adding a little moisture. That helps them bend without cracking. Then, machines shred the leaves into thin pieces. This shredded tobacco is mixed with a range of other ingredients. Some of the most common additives include sugar, menthol, and ammonia. Sugar is added to make the smoke feel smoother and sweeter. Menthol gives a cooling feeling when you inhale, which some smokers prefer. Ammonia is used to change how nicotine works in the body. It helps the nicotine get into the brain faster, making the cigarette more addictive. After mixing, the tobacco is pressed into blocks. These blocks are then tied up, labeled, and shipped off to another facility. That is where the rolling process begins. I was surprised to see how much work happens before anything even looks like a cigarette. By this point, it is not just tobacco anymore. It is a carefully controlled product with specific ingredients designed to create a certain taste and effect. The factories that make cigarettes are more than just places where tobacco gets rolled and boxed. They are centers of innovation. Inside these facilities, engineers and scientists are constantly working to improve machinery, increase output, and reduce waste. Some of these high-tech machines are capable of detecting even the smallest flaw, like a tiny hole in the cigarette paper or a misaligned filter. One interesting detail I learned is that many cigarette companies invest millions into making sure the machinery runs smoothly, not just for speed, but for consistency. Even the way the tobacco is packed into each cigarette affects how it burns, so precision matters at every level. Beyond the factory floor, labs are often part of the same facility. There, technicians run tests on the tobacco blend, smoke output, and chemical content to meet strict product standards. It feels strange to think that so much science and engineering is behind a product that at its core causes harm, but it is this level of control that keeps production on track and profits high. After the tobacco is blended and ready, it is time for the machines to take over. The next part of the process happens so quickly that it can be hard to follow with the eyes. High-speed machines are used to roll the tobacco into what is called a rod. These machines are able to produce up to 20,000 cigarettes every minute. That number honestly surprised me. It shows how industrialized and fast the production has become, even though it is dealing with something as delicate as tobacco. The tobacco rod is then wrapped in thin cigarette paper, which is not just any paper. It is specially made to burn evenly and consistently. Once the rod is complete, it is cut into smaller pieces to form the body of the cigarette. After that, filters are attached to both ends. These filters are made from a material called cellulose acetate, which looks like cotton but is actually a type of plastic. They are connected to the cigarette using tipping paper, which holds everything together firmly. At this point, the cigarette is almost ready to go. Each one is checked by machines that make sure it has the correct length, weight, and tobacco density. That might sound overly precise, but it matters. A cigarette that is too loose or too tight might not burn properly. Some factories also have workers doing visual checks during this stage, just to make sure nothing is missed. Watching this process gave me a strange feeling. Everything is so polished, clean, and efficient, almost like a food factory. But instead of producing something that keeps people alive, it creates something many people are trying to quit. Once the cigarettes pass all the quality checks, they move to the packaging area. This step is just as fast and precise as the ones before it. The cigarettes are wrapped in foil to keep them fresh and to protect the tobacco from moisture. Then they are packed tightly into branded boxes. These are the same boxes you see in stores with all the warning labels, logos, and shiny wrapping. It is all done by machines, and it happens very quickly. Even though most of the work is done by machines, people are still involved. Workers handle some parts of the packing process, especially when it comes to stacking boxes or doing final checks before shipping. It is one of those moments where you realize just how massive this industry really is. Every detail is managed to make sure cigarettes reach shelves in perfect condition. And they do not just supply one city or country. These factories are sending out products for millions of people all over the world. Once the cigarettes are packed and boxed, another stage begins: global distribution. The logistics behind getting cigarettes from factory to store shelves are incredibly complex. Shipments are sent out by trucks, trains, cargo ships, and even air freight in some cases. Each country has its own set of laws and taxes for tobacco products. So companies often have entire departments that manage international trade regulations. What surprised me is how cigarettes, though controversial, are treated like any other major export. The packaging may change slightly from country to country, some with graphic warnings, others with plain labels. But the product inside stays mostly the same. There are even duty-free versions made specifically for airports and international travelers. The goal is simple. Make sure cigarettes are always available, everywhere. It's part of what keeps the industry so powerful. No matter where you are in the world, chances are you'll find a place selling them nearby. That level of global reach doesn't happen by accident. It is part of a deeply coordinated supply chain. It is easy to think a cigarette is just tobacco wrapped in paper, but that is not really true. Once it is lit, that small stick turns into a source of thousands of chemicals. Experts say that over 7,000 different compounds are released in the smoke. Some of the names on that list are truly alarming. Arsenic, which is used in rat poison, formaldehyde, which is used to preserve dead bodies, and acetone, a solvent found in nail polish remover. These are not added by accident. They are part of what happens when tobacco burns at high heat. At one point in history, cigarette companies began adding filters to make smoking seem safer. That idea still lives on today, but it is very misleading. Research has shown that filters do not remove most harmful substances. Instead, they can trick people into taking deeper breaths, pulling more smoke into the lungs. So instead of making smoking safer, they may be making it more dangerous in a different way. This part made me pause and think about how easy it is to believe something is helping when it really is not. Besides harming people, cigarettes also hurt the planet in ways we do not always notice. Around 4.5 trillion cigarette butts are thrown away every year. That number is huge, and what makes it worse is that most of these butts are not biodegradable. The filters are made from a kind of plastic that can take years to break down. During that time, they sit in soil, beaches, and rivers, leaking toxic chemicals into the environment. I've seen cigarette butts stuck in sidewalks, floating in water, and left in parks. There are now efforts to create filters that break down faster or to recycle used cigarette ends. Some companies are trying to change things, but the truth is that the damage has already gone very far. It takes a long time to undo decades of pollution. I believe that if more people understood how much harm a single cigarette can cause, even after it is finished, they might think twice before tossing one on the ground. Another part of this story that often gets overlooked is the human cost behind the scenes. While machines now handle much of the cigarette-making process, many steps still rely on people, especially in countries where tobacco farming is done by hand. On these farms, workers often face long hours, low wages, and difficult working conditions. In some regions, child labor has even been reported in tobacco fields. Exposure to wet tobacco leaves can lead to something called green tobacco sickness, a kind of nicotine poisoning that happens just from touching the plants. The people involved in this industry, especially at the farming level, often have little say in the broader conversation about smoking and its impacts. Their jobs depend on a product that harms others, and yet they themselves may not have many other opportunities. It's a part of the cycle that shows how complex the tobacco industry really is, not just in how cigarettes are made, but in the lives that are tied to them all over the world. We have seen, from small seeds planted in soil to high-speed machines wrapping and boxing millions of cigarettes, shows how massive this industry really is. It is a highly developed system built to feed a habit that many people struggle to quit. What stands out to me the most is how carefully every part of the process is planned, even though the final product can be so harmful. The industry is powerful, and addiction keeps the demand strong. After learning about all the steps, the question changes. It is no longer just about how cigarettes are made. It becomes more about why they continue to be made at this scale. If we know the damage, if we know the health risks, why does this process keep going? That is something worth thinking about. Thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful or interesting, please give it a like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel.